came here in the 1870s. My grandpa was going to be a history professor at the University of Missouri. And he got interested in Indians, and there's a song an old country song that says, I was country when country wasn't cool. Well, my grandpa was an Indian lover when being an Indian lover wasn't cool. People who came from Europe, our ancestors, were trying to get rid of the Indians so they could come and use this land for their own purposes. And so most people consider the enemy savage, the Indian savages and their enemy. But my grandfather thought they were kind of interesting and cool, and he wanted to find out more about the ones who lived down here that really hadn't had anything written about. Did you know they didn't have computers then? And they didn't even have any books written about the Southern Plains Indians who lived down here. And so to find out about them, you had to come down Indian trails, which were started by wildlife. Did you know that's how our roads got started? By animals going to water. Every living thing has to have water. And they would make trails to their water holes, so when people came along, they were hunting water too, and they would follow the Indian trails. And my grandfather, when he came to Texas before he got married, and he was looking for information about the Indians, and he found out that if he would follow these trails, see, they didn't have any maps for this area, and they didn't have any roads except the trails that had been made by the wildlife and the Indians. And they all led to water. Because see, the wildlife had to have water, the Indians had to have water, and the European people who were hunting Indians had to have water. So they used the same roads, and you came down, and that goes along with Highway 83, see?
It does.
Highway 83 crosses lots of rivers and streams, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Does. And so anyway, as my grandfather started following the trails, he started finding things that the Indians had left, because by the time he came, there weren't any real Indians that were free to roam where they wanted to. Most of the Indians that were here after this, or right before and after the Civil War, had been chased out by the soldiers. And they had been put in reservations, and some of them had been living south into Mexico. And there weren't any Indians, and so to find out about the Indians, my grandpa started looking for things that the Indians had left. And each time he stopped in a water hole, he would find places where Indians had been camping. And that's how he found out about pictographs. He found bleached buffalo bones that had pictures on them. Now the reason these people didn't have alphabets, these Southern Plains nomads, is because they worked 18 hours every day just trying to get enough food and shelter for their families. And if you work 18 hours, you're not going to go home and write history books. And so these people, though, when something really important happened that they thought had to be documented, they would take some of the paintings they painted their bodies with and make simple pictures to tell their stories. Now sometimes it doesn't come off when you wash it and get it on your clothing. It will come off of my skin.
The way it feels on the skin.
Eventually. Now, Carla may have even seen me paint my face.
No, I don't think I've seen it in your face.
I kind of had to quit painting my face. I forget it's on there, and then I go over to town to get the mail or a hamburger, and everybody runs from me, and I can't do what I need to do. They say, she's on the work man, get out of the way. So I've just been painting lately, I've just been painting the heart. Yeah, this is bear grease. Bear grease is really good, but finding a bear might have been harder than that. We have beavers still, we don't have any bears. But there were bears around here. Oh Okay, here we go. Now, I am making a mess. If you make red paint, you have very expensive table cover, same color as your paint. From tell Mr. Walmart, make you a table cover the color of your paints. So it doesn't show. Okay. Are you ready? It's sure tempting to put on my face, isn't it? And did you notice, even if you're old and have arthritis, you can still use your crooked finger for a brush. And you know, do you take vitamins every day? Yeah. You do? You know they have a little iron in them, did you know that? Well, when you get old like I am, they take the iron out of your vitamins because you quit running and playing football and everything, and they're afraid you'll get too much and make your liver sick. So they don't give you any iron. And one day there was a doctor from Houston, a very important hospital named Indiana, and she looked at this and she said, "Do you do that every day?" And I thought she's going to tell me that he caused me to have cancer because she's from a cancer hospital. And I said, "Yes, is it bad for me?" And she said, "No, that's why you're such a spry lady." She said, "You need some iron every day because you're more active than most people your age, and you need some iron." And this is the way I've been getting my iron for years and didn't even know it. So how did the Indian, they thought they were making themselves look wild, when actually they were giving themselves a power boost when they're painting their bodies. And you know, after she told me that, I started telling that to the professors, and they had done some research now, and it had not been, they never had found it in the literature at all. Every one of the colors that they used here had a contribution to their nutritional needs. And I'm sure the Indians didn't realize that. A few thousand years ago, it hadn't been used right then. But anyway, an Indian found a geode, and a geode is a rock that has crystals inside. You've probably seen them at your Buffalo Gap, and they have rock collections. They would just make a hole in a geode, take a sharp piece of flint, clean the crystals out, and they would use that to mix paint in. See how it fits my hand? Okay. All right, and then this is another. This is just a rock that had a hole washed in it by the river, and they ground some places where their fingers would fit, so it wouldn't fall out of their hand and spill their paint. And this is where they mix the paint. And this is one of their rocks instead of. Yeah, I really do need to mark these there, or you and these, not mark these. Okay. I think, see, my grandchildren all help me all their lives, like I help my own. And they know, but I probably do need to do that. Okay, this is a really truly Indian rock. It was left here hundreds and maybe thousands of years ago to use of the rock, just like I did. Okay. And one other thing I wanted to mention to you is flint. You know, they use flint to make their arrowheads and their other, and here you find some rocks that are not like those fancy arrowheads that were used for other purposes. This bluff was good for driving animals off the bluff so they'd fall and break their necks and make a big feet. Well, sometimes when the animal falls off the cliff, he doesn't hit hard enough to break his neck and he's just wounded. And he would be dangerous for the women to come in and dress the meat. So the guys take a big piece of flint and shape it into a club so they can make the buffalo not hurt anything, okay? And then, after the feast is over, they don't have a way to can the meat or freeze the meat, and so they make jerky. And they need a post hole meat. Instead of walking way up to the quarry to get another piece of flint, they just take their hammerstone and hit it and turn it into a post hole meat. The big holes are ready for posting and grind back so they can make jerky of the leftovers. And while the jerky is smoking, They sharpen it again and make a hand axe, and they can break bones open, and that is another source of fat. The bone marrow inside of a great big bone, there's some really good stuff that you read, and it's real good for making paint. You ever know that?